Liftoff of mission 41D, first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
3, 2, and hey, what's going on, guys? Brett here. Welcome to the Health or High Water podcast, season 2, episode.
I think it's 7.
Somewhere around there. We lose track of the episodes. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. Brett Hutari and Trip Parks here from Ascend Performance Training on the Health or High Water podcast, bringing to you always great conversations.
In our sweet, sultry voices.
Revolving around health and fitness. Hope you're having a great day. Trip, why don't you go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsors?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you to the listeners. You guys make this podcast happen. The new listeners out there and old listeners, just make sure you guys tell some people about us, because our entire goal here is to help you guys out as well as us learn. We want to thank our sponsors: O2 Boost, Adrian Bybee Coaching / Herculean Adventure, U vs. U Clothing Brand, Kalevala Labs, Gene Planet, Taste Life Nutrition. Am I missing anything?
That seems like it.
Hyperspeed
AI. We got a lot of shout outs we got to give.
Oh, Pelvic Harmony too.
Oh yeah, Pelvic Harmony. If you guys didn't listen to it, it's super exciting. Bethany is now which is Pelvic Harmony, is now in Ascend Performance Training. She moved in this week. Already has picking up clients. She's fantastic. Not only an amazing person and an incredibly knowledgeable individual, but we're so grateful to be surrounded by what she's bringing to the table now. She specializes in pelvic health, among some other soft tissue injuries, and has already started to work with some of our clients and is already hearing rave reviews. So if you haven't, look her up on pelvichaharmonyco.com. And yeah.
Fuck yeah, man.
Let's go.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about hormones. This is going to be like a little introductory to hormones. A lot of people, even doctors, are scared of talking about hormones because they're so finicky.
Yep.
You and I had a little conversation about hormones on the way over here. And honestly, I'm going to be very transparent about what I've used in the past with this episode. So all questions are greenlit for this one. So, yeah. So what do you know about hormones, Brett?
Hormones. Well, they play a huge role in balancing. Honestly, straight off the bat, I'm not an expert in hormones by no stretch of the imaginations whatsoever. So I know very, very little in the scope of my specialty is not hormones whatsoever. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Well, hormones are specialized molecules that act as messengers, regulating certain body functions and maintaining homeostasis. These functions influence growth, metabolism, reproduction, mood, and other psychological preferences. This is all run by your endocrine system, right? Hormone balance and whatnot. There's a lot of people out there that are suffering from things like menopause and andropause, and these are natural functions that typically deteriorate as we get older. I feel like andropause, which is the men's version of menopause, is one of the most underdiagnosed issues out there, and one of the safest practices to increase your health. Right, like testosterone's been around for, I don't know, even synthetic testosterone's been around for like 40, 50, 60 years. Right, there's really, as far as I know, there's no real specific links to cancer or any other long-term illnesses and whatnot. So, there's a ton of issues out there, hormone imbalances like thyroid issues, cancer, that are affecting our hormones. Like, you ever seen those people that are just giants that have the what is it? Not puberty. I'm dying here, man. Whatever, they have it ended up like they're super tall because they have a pituitary gland. There we go. Jesus.
That was the word you were looking for?
Yes.
Pituitary?
Yeah. Well, these people are super tall because they have an issue there that growth hormone just keeps on funneling out, and they just don't stop growing. Right. So there's tons of things there.
Well, so what are some? Why should people care? What are some things they can do? What are some things to worry about?
Well, like I said, it's, all your hormones affect things like growth, metabolism, reproduction, mood, and other psychological issues. So if you're like fatigued, your immune system sucks, you can't lose fat and gain muscle. Like these are issues that typically are corresponding to hormone issues, right? The endocrine system all over, and a lot of these are also affecting our sex drives, right? Our self-image, all these kind of things. So there's a ton of issues that go into hormone regulation and issues that we just don't talk about very much because people are scared to talk about hormones.
Yeah. So what? Give me like a broad like perspective on somebody who doesn't know about this. Like, what are they looking to do? What should they do? Should they go get a hormone? Like, I mean, start from the basic.
Yeah, sure. So if
Get
you
a
got
hormone test.
100%. Let's get number one step is get your blood work done. Understand what the problem is, and then eliminate those things. Like, hey, if it isn't your thyroid or isn't a hormone issue, maybe it's something else. You know what I mean? So start with the blood test. Start talking to a healthcare professional about these. This is not something I would jump into. Everyone out there that's been taking like SARMs, poor hormones, or any other like over-the-counter hormone replacement, I would suggest stop that and go to a doctor. Right, because these can really turn into big issues if you don't take them the right way and you're not tracking what's going on. So and these issues can happen in puberty, during your menstrual cycle, pregnancy, menopause, andropause. I mean, there's tons of different times in your life and tons of different situations where this can be affected.
Well, what are some hormones then to pay attention to?
Well, you and I talk about this one a lot is cortisol. Right? A lot of cortisol built up is going to affect your immune system, sleep, and this is the stressor hormone that a lot of us talk about. It's like, every time you get in someone cuts you off in traffic, you can get all like tensed up. There's going to be a little bit of cortisol release because that's what your body does to balance things out. But when you keep on abusing cortisol, it's just kept on going in your system, then these piles compound. And unless you have like an adrenaline cleanser like ashwagandha or whatnot, then these issues are going to keep on going. Right? These issues just keep on compounding themselves. They don't just fix themselves.
Yeah, cortisol is huge. And I'm actually reading here too. But stress response, obviously cortisol, fight or flight response. Also regulates your metabolism, inflammation regulation, and has a huge influence on your mood. There's something big too that I think people, especially now, have chronic overactive, like what is it called? It's like their cortisol is always on alert. It's always releasing. They're always in a fight or flight mode, whether it be anxiety or whatever it is. They're always, having that, and they're not in danger. Their life's not in danger. It's like usually a work deadline or like something that's really not dangerous. What are the repercussions of that?
Well, repercussions is like I said, like a lot of us that, and I'm included here, is I've always had like kind of a high cortisol output because I'm just such a high-strung person. Those kind of issues can be again sleep decency, sleep latency, your ability to control yourself throughout the day emotionally. You're also going to see some issues in your progress in fitness, like I'm trying to lose some fat, build some muscle. You're going to see some issues there, and honestly several more. It's one of the kind of like worst things that we can. It's not going to kill us, don't get me wrong, but it's one of the worst things that we can do to our body is over cortisol production.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I know there have been some studies out that have shown what chronic stress does to the body. Just a few are skin issues can be from chronic stress.
Yep.
Suppressed reproductive function, muscle and bone issues, mood disorders, digestive problems, high blood pressure. So there's a lot of things that happen from immune function, and the list goes on and on.
Well, that too, and another two big ones for us is estrogen and testosterone. And testosterone is almost demonized nowadays. You know what I mean? It's
Why is that?
Well, you think about it. It's think about it. Sports. If someone's using testosterone, even if they're above age of andropause or men's menopause, then they're demonized as using steroids, right? But if someone has a vitamin D deficiency and takes vitamin D, it's fine, right? If you're missing something out, this is just my opinion. This is not any science at all. This is my opinion on it. Is like if you're missing a functionality of your body to help you produce and stay healthy, then why demonize it? Now, I understand abuse and use is two totally different things on this if if everything's being regulated by a healthcare professional, then why not? If If you don't have enough testosterone in your system, your immune system is gonna suffer. Your sleep is gonna suffer. Your emotions are gonna suffer, right? Laziness is gonna kick in. Lethargy, all these different things can happen if you're not balanced out properly. Now, do I think everyone should go right to TRT and doing straight up testosterone? Maybe not necessarily. Maybe Tribulus or something else like ashwagandha is going to be great, which helps with testosterone. Ashwagandha helps with testosterone, natural testosterone production, as well as gets rid of cortisol. So there's a lot of natural ways we can do this too. But estrogen and testosterone have almost been kind of demonized a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if I've heard that testosterone's been demonized. What do you mean by that?
By
who? Who's saying that?
like I said, like sports teams, other people that are like, oh, I'm not gonna take that. It's not a natural part of my body. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten in conversations about hormones, and someone's like, I'm just not gonna do it.
Well, I can understand the sports realm. You're competing against somebody else. Like I from just my perspective, I can understand somebody demonizing it if you're competing against somebody and you're putting testosterone in your body, right?
Well,
wouldn't that be a reasonable conversation?
100%, and I think we should have this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion is there's a difference between use and abuse for that, right? So if let's say someone's coming in the NFL, they're 21 years old and they've got testosterone in the 900s, right? And then you have someone who's 43 years old, who's still in the NFL in same exact position, right? And their testosterone's at 300, and they can't keep playing with him. Do you feel like if he was on a moderate amount prescribed by a doctor, that'd be fair?
I mean, if you're asking my opinion.
It's just opinions right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I don't know if I have enough information to strongly form an opinion. I don't. I'm not a proponent of everybody going to get tests of like, hey, the natural test level is 700. Everybody who's not at a 700 should be going to get that. I mean, that's just my personal thoughts on it. I think there's a lot of different ways to raise your testosterone naturally, with good sleep, lifting heavily and properly, eating properly. I think aligning your hormones in natural ways. I think even grounding and stuff like that. I think there's still going to be cases where it's natural for human beings to have different levels of hormones, right? I think it's natural for somebody to have a testosterone level of this versus someone else who's got a different testosterone level. So if you're bringing into question the concept of like, hey, someone's at a 300, they're competing, let's bump them to a 500 in a clinical setting, you kind of open, in my mind, you open the conversation up to a whole different realm of, hey, every athlete then should be getting injected if they're not at that optimal level. Kind of how do you approach that conversation then?
That's a really good point too, right? It is for me. It's that we have to decide as a medical community, and I'm not in any kind of medical setting here. I'm just saying as a medical community, we have to understand that andropause is just as bad as menopause, right? And people have prescribed anything they can for helping with menopause and cramps and all this other stuff, but let's just say taking andropause for a second, and the natural testosterone decrease of men, then I do think there is some fairness to say, hey, like, listen, if it's in a clinical setting, why not? That what for me is like a lot of athletes, just talk athletes right now, is like a lot of athletes know this, right? The older they get, the harder it is for them to compete. That's life, right? That's 100% life. But you could extend that lifestyle or that life, a few more years, keep them competing. If it's in a clinical setting, use and abuse, then I do think it's at least open for discussion to talk about, hey, how can we keep our players healthy for longer, right? Because this does not just affect your sports; it affects, like we said, your sex drive, your immune system, your ability to process with your immune system, there's just tons of other things, right? So I do think there's an opportunity for it to be a discussion, but I do agree with your point. Is like, hey, do we do everybody like that? I do think it should be a choice for the athlete too. It's like,
well, every athlete. There's a couple things. Number one, every athlete who's getting paid money or millions of dollars is going to find a way to take whatever substance that's not going to get them in trouble, that's going to get them. So they're going to want to, everyone's going to want to do it. So there's two different conversations here. There's the athletic aspect of it, and then there's just the general health.
Right.
But I think they're two totally separate conversations. The other thing, too, is like clinical setting. What do you mean by that? Because, it's sort of like, do you mean a clinical setting is always a safe setting versus a non-clinical setting is always a non-safe setting.
Again, proposing really good questions here too, and I'm going to go back to what we're kind of saying about, like you said, athletes are always going to try to find a way to keep them going for as long as possible.
Sure.
You remember Ray Lewis got caught with the red deer velvet antler stuff, whatever, right? He was using that to supplement, testosterone or whatnot because he couldn't get it in a clinical setting. And clinical, I mean like getting everything done by a doctor, prescribed by a doctor, blood work by a doctor, everything done in a medical facility. Right, that way there's no use or abuse, right? So for me, that's a clinical setting. But the thing is, if players are already trying to bend out of the rules to try to figure out how to boost their testosterone, a lot of them do it, man. Some of them use very short acting testosterones when they work out. That's out of their system at the end of the day. So if we were at least able to regulate that and say, hey guys, if you're going to a doctor, you guys can get it done the right way, instead of abusing it and whatnot, which a lot of people do abuse that kind of stuff because they want the competitive edge, then we're making it more of a clear, like a even field, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still interesting because it still raises the question of then wouldn't everybody just do it then? Like all athletes, every single athlete would go and get their. What does the board do then? Like, does the board say, hey, everybody is at a 700 testosterone level?
Yeah, make limitations on it. Like, hey, listen, this is where you're allowed to be. This is where you're not allowed to be.
I think they do have that, actually.
Bless you. Nailed it. Bless you.
I think they do have that limitations on. I think that's how the board is. Like, if you're over X amount, you're test positive for PEDs.
Well, even if you're producing natural testosterone at a high rate, are they just going to penalize you for being natural?
No, what's the argument then about the holistic? Because human beings, when you talk about menopause and andropause, those are normal human being things that happen to us.
Sure, yeah.
There's a reason nature has it that way. We're not supposed to have extremely high levels of testosterone our entire lives. There are reasons human beings have that. So how do you address that question from a holistic perspective?
We're not supposed to last till 95 either. Right? Like our lifespans are getting so much longer that we're having different issues that we have to deal with. Right? Like back in the caveman days, our average age for a male was 25. Right? So we're increasing our life expectancy, but not talking about what that life expectancy means and what health is throughout your life. Right? So we're doing tons of unnatural things to us already. Right, we're living longer. We're having different sedentary kind of lifestyles. We're in a different situation than we were naturally even 200 years ago. Right, so that's where I'm kind of at. It's like, listen, if we are going to live this long, then we need to take care of those issues that do age us, that do propose huge issues for us, like being able to lose fat, which hormones are directly involved with for some people, right? Or our ability to focus, our ability to manage our immune system. And as we get older, we need to talk about those things to keep ourselves healthy and fit for as long as possible. So yes, you're right. It's an unnatural way to look at it because, holistically, you're kind of supposed to start tapering off. But if we're living longer, living more fulfilled lives, then we do need to talk about at least talk about it, even if it's a natural way, like tribulus or ashwagandha or lifting or grounding or whatever you want to do to produce that testosterone more naturally. Then yeah, we need to talk about it because it already is creating issues because of our lifespan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's tons of ways to find your natural balance of testosterone, and everyone is, I think, supposed to have different testosterone levels. There's no. I don't think people are born and like, oh, you're not a 650, so you're way off the, the map. So, but like you said, people are living longer. But that living longer is a byproduct of, it's a byproduct of, sanitation. Number one, we're cooking we have much better sanitation than we used to have 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. We're not dying from diseases that we used to have. One thing that's not natural is sedentary lifestyle. So as much as we're sitting is not a normal thing, but still just trying to tie that to the conversation of altering your hormones. It's an interesting one. It's a very interesting, kind of almost ethical debate on
it is really
on hey, we could make your hormones exactly what would be optimal. And a lot of guys are doing it. There are millions.
And women.
And women, for sure. And women. Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Well, I think too, like,
And you're on. Sorry to cut you
No,
off.
you're
You're
fine.
on. You're once you get on, you're on. Right. You cannot get off.
well, unless you want to go back to, I mean, you can get off it whenever you want if you really want to.
But it's not. It's not. You're not getting on it, and then it's fixing something in you, or like
Right.
encouraging your body to produce it naturally. You're just adding in artificial things that give you that optimal level, and then the second you take away that artificial thing, you're back down to normal, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. No, and it's just like, listen, if you're vitamin D deficient, if you're vitamin B6 deficient, if you have a hard time with that, then yeah, you're going to be taking it
Yeah.
the majority of your life. And I see, like, I think about it more as a supplement than it is a hormone, and that's because of my background and whatnot. I don't see it as much of a harsh, and I used demonizing earlier, but it's more of like a harsh way to think about it. Right, like I see it as like, listen, if you got low testosterone, then if you're trying to hit these certain goals and it's getting in your way, then go for it. If it's something that you can live without and you're fine, then, cool beans.
Yeah.
But going back on that conversation is like, you're right. It's an ethical debate. There really is not a yes or no question that we can really answer, because we still need to know a lot more about what these parameters will be if someone did it. We need to know about the lifelong effect more about these kind of things too. But what I've seen and the studies have showed so far is people that do take hormone replacement therapy typically have a much happier life. Right? Go to someone who's been on it for 2 or 3 years, and like, they're not going to get off it. Because they feel so much better. They feel younger. Their joints feel better. They're able to put on lean mass. They're able to do these workouts. They're more driven to eat these better foods because their body's working better.
Have you seen these old? It's like I mean, it doesn't matter, old men or women that are now like on the TRT and they're, I don't know how they do the doses. Whether, like, I'm sure there's a way you can dose your own self.
Oh, yeah.
Your own whatever it is. And they're like jacked. They're super, especially the women, because men can naturally build muscle easier. As you get older, it gets way harder. But you can clearly see the people are taking artificial. And then what sucks is that people who are like, oh, look how great shape they're in. And I'm like, you can't achieve that naturally.
Well, no, and the way you can tell is if you see a picture of someone like that, if you put a piece of paper over their body and their face still looks like they belong in a retirement home.
I will back you up on the mood thing though. I've had many clients that have got on it and have reported significant improvements in their mood and sex life and just their life in general. But there is that conversation of like, okay, well,
what is too much?
Yeah, there's got to be there's a very interesting gray line there of
Does it belong in sports? Does it not? Like, I don't know. I just want to have the conversation about like, hey, like, what do you think about it? And what does everyone else think about it? Because I think it is up for debate a little bit because, andropause is a medical issue. You know what I mean? And I do believe that, some of these, especially these older guys in the NFL, like 30 plus, that are just getting blown away. Like, Aaron Rodgers went down this year. Kirk Cousins went down this year. There's so many other people that have been. Joey Bosa went down this year. Just so many people that I believe probably are, late 20s or, into late 30s are starting to have hormone issues, getting hurt more and more and more and more.
Sure.
And that's, like you said, it's a natural progression of getting old. Is like we're supposed to break down and we're supposed to turn into, sustenance for like a bear or something, right? That's just kind of the natural progression of things. But we're living more unnatural lives nowadays, and unnatural lives we kind of do some unnatural things to make sure that we're staying healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's pick this conversation up. This is interesting. We need to have is somebody from the hormone clinic come in here, and,
School us.
Not school us, but like just have this conversation from different perspectives. Thanks for joining us on this interesting episode of Health or High Water as we dig into the hormones and testosterone. We hope you're having a wonderful day, and we'll catch you next time on Health or High Water.
Yeah, make sure you guys are also going to the brand new and approved AscendPerformanceTraining.com. If you guys are in the Denver area or you're looking for online training, sign up this week because prices will be going up next week. We're offering online training, in-person training, PT, genetic tests, blood work, supplementation, and much, much more. So make sure you guys are getting on this train now because I'll tell you what, Brett's spots are filling up pretty quick, and so are mine. So get on this right now, and thank you guys so much.
All right, peace.